Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, continuing my journey through this re-dive of songs that I originally did with a guest host. My guest in this case was David Moody from In the Lap of the Pods, the Queen podcast of the Deep Dive Network. He does this with Paul and Joe, and they really go in depth. I mean, their shows are like 2.5, 3 hours long, amazing discussions. It's a lot to take in. There's like so much to learn, and these guys are great about giving out all the information and just, you know, their feelings and their opinions, what inspires them, what they don't like. Really, really great format, and it's just a very open and honest discussion, which I really dig. So check them out. The link is in the show notes, and he was my guest for this one. Now I'm going to do this solo. This song is from the album Innocent Victim. And so our lineup has once again changed quite a bit, actually. Here now on lead vocals, we have one Mr. John Lawton, who I first heard on an album by Roger Glover called The Butterfly Ball and the Grasshopper's Feast. He sang a song that was not on the original cut that I had, but came out on the bonus album called Little Chalk Blue. Absolutely beautiful song. You could see why Roger suggested John for a singer for Uriah Heep. I've heard that he told Mick, and I've heard that he told Ken, but either way, in any case, they all knew each other, and he recommended John. John auditioned and got the gig, which I think we're all very grateful for, because I know John was a very loved singer for Uriah Heep. On guitar, of course, we have Mick Box. On bass guitar, we have Trevor Boulder. On drums and backing vocals, we have Lee the Bear Kerslake. And of course, on keyboards, we have Ken Hensley. Now, this is a lineup that was very, very strong, very popular. And I think John, what was it, 3 albums with Heep? All very, very good. Some of the songs that I came to love through a best of album that I had when I had really kind of distanced myself from listening to new music. And I was like, you know, I've really lost touch with Uriah Heep. I really want to get back into their music. So I got a best of so I could kind of get a broad scope of where they had been in my time away from the band. And boy, was I glad I did. And then, of course, I went back and got all of the studio albums, because why wouldn't I? They're all fantastic in one way or another, although people like to argue ad nauseum of what album isn't a Uriah Heep album, even though the band wrote and recorded it. Amazing. So anyway, here is a little bit of Free and Easy from Innocent Victim. Now, one thing I do remember about John Lawton, at least in his time with Uriah Heep, other than Little Chalk Blue, I don't know any of his like solo workers work with any of the other bands. But one thing that I do know about John is that he loves to introduce himself and let you know that he's singing on the song before the vocals even need to start. So he always throws in like something like this, some kind of sound, a moan, a hum, a word or two. Always very interesting. So you always know that John is going to be on the song. But I love his voice. He has an absolutely fantastic voice. I thought he was an interesting choice for the band, because thinking in terms of like some of the older songs, I wouldn't necessarily have envisioned him singing them. And I've not heard any live stuff to know what he would have sounded like singing, you know, like Easy Living or some of those older songs. I'm sure he could do it just fine, but it would have, I would not have been a good visionary for picking him. That's where Roger Glover, if he says it, you just got to trust him, because he really knows what he's talking about. He always has. But it's a good start to a song. It's really upbeat. It's got a great riff, very energetic. John kicks in. He's already got his just I'm on fire feel. So let's see where it goes. And not surprising whatsoever, John sounds fantastic in full form, real powerful as he always does. Even when he's got a gentle voice, you still sense that there's real power in it. And I always love that about his vocals. What I'm really digging on here is the bass line, because it's really in the low end, but it sounds powerful. A lot of times you lose a little bit of the power if you're playing too low, but this sounds really good. And I like what he's playing. You can hear some dynamics in there. Sounds very powerful. Definitely feel like Trevor's playing with a pick on this song because of the way that the bass sounds. I could be wrong. He might be playing finger, but it definitely has an edge to it. Yeah, that bass sound is really gritty. I absolutely love it. Great progression to the song. I love that change there. That was a great segue back into the next verse. This song really kind of kicks some ass, doesn't it? That's a very interesting and almost disconnected drum fill there. Like you feel like it's going to do something and then it just stops. And then, oh, wait, there's another hit. Nope, not doing anything else. And then you just go in again to the next section. Really weird. I love that keyboard swell. Ken Hensley was known so much for doing those really just huge, vibrant swells. It's a little more in the background in the mix than I'm used to hearing. But, that's just how it was mixed by the engineer. And but it's very powerful. Really not hearing a lot of keys up to this point during the song. Of course, it seems like whenever I say that, then all of a sudden the instrument becomes very prominent in the song, almost like I know ahead of time that's going to happen. But I don't think I've listened to this song since we did the episode, which was like, over a year ago. So, or almost a year ago. So not very familiar with it still. But it's definitely got a kick to it. I really like it. It's so classic of Heep to do a transition like this or end a part with something a little bit technical, but find notes that nobody else would use. I've never heard this done. It's a common progression, but I've never heard it done with those specific notes before. Very interesting. It's almost like, okay, what would the standard be? Okay, now what can we do to it? What would Uriah Heep do with this? And they always find just something interesting, something different to pull out of something that's very common and standard and really make it their own. And I've always loved that. Also, this is definitely a shuffle, but the kick is not very punchy. So it's kind of hard to tell, but it sounds like it's just hitting on the quarter notes and not the double shuffle that we're used to hearing. I'm definitely not hearing a double snare. I'm hardly really hearing a snare at all, to be honest. In contrast, it's not really upfront or poppy in the mix. It doesn't have that snap to it that you kind of expect from a snare. If he was playing a double shuffle, you could understand that because he's playing too fast to get that pop. If you have to double hit really fast, it's just not going to happen. But in this case, yeah, it really almost feels like he's playing with brushes and not sticks because it's so soft. Okay, that fill was much more comfortable for me because it kind of, it took up all that space. It didn't seem so disconnected as the first one. The first one was interesting, but it was not at all what I was expecting. And it kind of interrupted the flow of the song for me, whereas this one really continued it on very nicely and just got you ready to move right into the next part. I will say, though, it sounds like, because the hi-hat is really drowning out the snare, it sounds like he's playing the double shuffle on the hat and maybe not the snare. I'm kind of hearing the snare the same way that I do as the kick, where it's only on, half of where you would expect it. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's not wrong to play it that way by any means, but I'm so used to hearing Lee do the double shuffle, even on a faster tempo song like this. I'm just not hearing it. And it could be the mix. It very well could be, because the snare is just not cutting through at all. And the kick really isn't either. The toms, however, are cutting through beautifully. I can hear them very clearly, very well defined. But as I recall, this was around the time where I started really not liking the mixes that Heep was getting in the studio. I know during like the John Sloman period, I felt that way. And I'm pretty sure I said that quite a bit during the John Lawton years too. Just my taste as an engineer. I'm a very picky audio engineer. I've been doing it for 30 years. So of course I'm going to have my opinions on that. If you feel it sounds good, then by all means, you are not wrong. I am not wrong. It's just people hear and feel things the way that they hear and feel them. So nothing wrong with it either way. Just for my taste, I would like the drums a little bit more defined, especially on a song that drives like this, something that has a good pulsating beat. I should be feeling that kick against my chest a little bit. I should be feeling that crack of the snare a little bit. Even on a double shuffle, I should hear a little more snare. Really like that guitar battle there. Obviously very prominent in the left and right, a little off balance. I think the one in my right ear was a little bit louder than the one in my left. Could be the style, but overall in the mix, I probably would have balanced those a little bit, just a little bit closer. They weren't too bad though, but great playing, great question and response. I really like that. I could have used more. Actually, I could have used another pass of the whole section of that if it would have built up a little bit more. Maybe add the drums into a different beat or something would have been nice. But it's such a cool part. But you know, this song is only 3 minutes and 6 seconds. It's pretty much an in and out song. But you do get actually a lot. I mean, the parts are very short, so it's easy to transition into a number of things because they're not long and taking up the bulk of the time in the song. It's a great song. It feels like it's going to be over just as it's even getting started, though, because when a song has got this much energy and it's over quickly, you're just left with like, what? But I wanted more. Now, the bass guitar is also playing a little bit higher up in the register of notes, so we're not really getting a lot of low end on this song. I'm not hearing like another rhythm guitar track or anything that would fill that in. So this is a pretty, mid-low to mid-range song and not getting really a lot of bottom end on it, which is another reason that kick should really be beefy and thick and really filling up that part of the sound. Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit, this section of Too Scared to Run, maybe just a little bit faster with a little bit more in the way of just a little bit more in the way of dynamics. But it's got that same energy. The guitar sound is very much the same. It's got that mid-range sound to it. Very strong, great distortion, but not a lot of bottom end anywhere in the song. Very powerful vocals by John. Like he could have gone on screaming a little bit. I would have thoroughly enjoyed that. But I'll take the little bit that we got. Okay, and we've got the classic overextended concert ending song. Could have ended easily and cleanly, and then they went on and extended it a little beyond that. So this would be like the song that you end the encore with, right? Because you've got, the song that ends the show, and it kind of sounds like the show's over, but then the encore comes out, play 3 or 4 songs, and this would be the last one. It would be a great note to end a show on because it's full of so much energy, and the crowd would just leave so pumped and like, I got to put Uriah Heep on as soon as I get in the car. And, having the sort of double ending here would really be perfect for the final song of the encore. So definitely set up for it. I don't know if it was ever played live or not, but very, very cool. Great energetic song. Like I said, I recall doing these albums, the biggest issue that I had was not the writing, it was not the performance, it was the mix, and this was a good reminder of what I didn't like. At the very end, the kick comes through great. It's really punchy. It's there. It's in full force. Where was it during the song? Of course, he was playing a lot faster during the song, so you're not going to get quite the attack that you would, but it still should have been, beefed up and more prominent in the EQ for sure. Would have given the song a little bit more of a push that I think would have worked better. But the song, the writing, the performances, everything else, the passion's there. Love John's vocals. He's so consistent. Like I said, I don't really know a lot of his live stuff, so I don't know how consistent he was as a live singer, but I can say in the studio, every single song, he brings it. And that's one thing I very much loved about him as a vocalist. Plus, he's just got a great voice. He's somebody that you just want to listen to, or at least I do. I would imagine a lot of you guys do too, based on the feedback that I recall getting throughout the albums that we covered of his in Uriah Heep's time. And not too surprising. And I've seen a lot of great feedback from his work with Roger Glover on the Butterfly Ball as well, because he did such a great job. Little Chalk Blue is kind of an emotional song. So, he was a perfect guy to sing it. I don't know how Roger found him in the first place, but I'm so glad he did, because obviously that led to 3 wonderful albums with Uriah Heep. So that is our show for today, guys. I hope that you have a great weekend. We will be back on Monday with another episode of the Magicians Podcast as we round out the last 3 songs of this season, gearing up for the release of the next season, which will be the new album Chaos and Colors. Cheers! Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!